Welcome back. I'm delighted to introduce our next guest, Regis Hitimana, who, together with his colleagues, gave us a very warm and friendly welcome during our research with Ken Aicha at Iwalewahaus in Bayreuth, and provided us with these works of art from the archive that you can see here in the heart of the exhibition. Regis is a researcher, curator, and cultural practitioner working with African art and archives. Based at the University of Bayreuth's Iwalewahaus, his work focuses on archives as living spaces where stories continue to shift, survive, and take on new meanings. His presentation, Surviving in the Archive, shows how African art and memories live on in archives, even if they are sometimes forgotten or misrepresented. Regis Hitimana talks about how we can take responsibility of these artworks, collective memories, and stories. He describes the archive as a sensitive ecosystem in which decisions are constantly being made about what survives. Thank you, Regis.
Thank you very much. I want to say thanks to Cornelia first, because her presentation was kind of detailed and had a lot of what I wanted to mention. I won't mention any of that. I'm going to open the presentation to all of us. If you see the title, Surviving in the Archive, put yourself in a position of an artwork or an object in a collection. Then that's the part that I'm going to talk about mostly. The first question, or the one that we are kind of all asking ourselves, is what does it mean to survive? This is one of the, a crucial question when you're asking, or when you interact with an archive or with a collection, and you come across artworks and you wonder, how did they get there? How are they being kept? And what's the use of these objects or artworks? In the past, since I've been in Germany, I've been at Iwalewahaus, and specifically in the past 2 years, I've been directly working with the collection, and I've come across a lot of artworks that I think, okay, I never knew these artworks are here. Or the other artworks were I know they are from Iwalewahaus, but I never see them here because they are always traveling. So it's like there are works that are always on the way. There are others that are there, just sleeping, so to say. And you wonder why, And that's the central question that I'm working on my day-to-day life and also in the upcoming years, so to say. So surviving in the archive is more or less the artworks competing for space, competing for resources, competing for attention. The attention that we bring to the artworks. Who is interested in these artworks? And what kind of value that brings to the object or to the artwork. In this case, also in the case of Survival Kiddies exhibition here, survival in the archive is not really that guaranteed in a way. It's more, it's a power play in a sense, where the people engaging with the archive, engaging with the artworks, decides what kind of floats around. In a sense, if I am working with the archive, I'm taking care of the archive, I kind of shift the narrative of what comes out and what stays inside. Even if you would be coming to the archive, I can influence your mind on what artwork to choose. because I have my own mind about the archive itself. But also, if you visit an archive, you have what you're looking for. And sometimes there's artworks that you never come across because maybe you're not open to what else is there. So this question of survival is very crucial because you as the individual getting in contact with the archive kind of decides what survives and what doesn't, in a sense. And also the relationships that she mentioned when it comes to if the curator or the custodian of the archive likes you, you kind of have more access to the archive. So you see how important the relationships are also, you know? And if they don't like you, you're like, yeah, you just see this one and that's it. And your research kind of stays stagnant or stays in a way that could be expanded if you see other artworks or come across other information about what you're looking for. So these relationships, the strategies to keep the artworks, everything decides what survives and what doesn't survive. In this sense, that's, as it was mentioned, it's what I said that it's a, this is, the laptop is frozen. Yeah, but in a sense, it's an ecosystem of artworks that compete to survive. And in this ecosystem, you have artworks that are, I don't know, it's frozen. It's okay. With these artworks that are competing for this space, the attention, the resources in the archive, then you have the ones that are very out in the open, you have the ones that are silent, and you have the ones that no one knows about. In this sense, I'm talking about, in the case of Iwalewahaus, for example, we have artists that are always sought after. I can give an example, Twin 77, for example. He's an artist that everyone wants. And you wonder why. There's a question of aesthetic, maybe. There's a question of his connection with, you know, how was he connected internationally? That's another thing. But you have all these artworks and artists that are very sought after, and they are always moving, always moving. So these artworks in the archive, they're not only surviving, but they are thriving, so to say, because they are everywhere. And we get curators that come to check some artworks that we have, and they always ask, I would like to have this artwork because it was in this big exhibition here. So that's also one thing where there's a notoriety that comes with an artwork that has been exhibited in big exhibitions, and they're like, I want this. But you're like, oh, but there's other artworks that maybe fit better what you want, you know? But, you know, there's also like a making your own name as a curator or as a researcher. They're like, I want this, just this one, because it was everywhere. So that brings up also this kind of artists that are always in catalogs, you know? They go into Biennale or everywhere. They are always in catalogs. As researchers or curators, you are always working on these same artworks and artists. They are everywhere. So their survival is, how do I say, produced, so to say, you know? It's not that it was inevitable, like this artwork or this artist was supposed to succeed. No. We created the success. We manufactured this success of these artworks through the relationships. Whoever wants to make their name using these, you know, artworks by making exhibitions, all these defines the thriving of these artworks. Then in the archive, we have the ones that are persisting. It's the artworks that are there. We know they are there, but no one wants to talk about them. Or the researchers that come, they're not interested. These artworks are just there dormant, and probably they've been in an exhibition, last time was in the 90s, so to say, let's say. You know, and probably the catalog is not even updated. So these are surviving, they are persisting in the archive, and they are more holding space. We know they are there. If you come and you ask me, I'll be like, yeah, I think we have this artwork. You get the sense of what I'm talking about. It's more like there's twins, I know we have this artist, I know we have this artwork. It's already there. This other one, I have to think if we have the artwork or not. So I have to go check the papers again to be like, oh yeah, we do have that. Is, you know, these are two different settings. And then the third is the ones that are there, no one knows about them. They are still wrapped since they came into the archive. It's been how many years, 30, 40 years? And no one has taken charge of, you know, bringing them out. And this is a big problem because maybe those artworks are very valuable and they could be also traveling, so to say, but they are still wrapped. No one knows about them. There's no information of how they got into the archive, for example. So how are they surviving? They're just there. No one knows about them. You know? This is the main question, like, their survival depends on what? You know? They've never been unwrapped. They're just in the depot down there, and that's it. Maybe the decisions of the institutions that holds them, who knows? You know? And these three, like the artworks that are thriving, or the one that persists, it creates also like a division, like the survivors, so to say, in the archive. You know, let me. I have examples of the artworks. Yeah, that I want to show because I kind of categorize them into three, like the celebrated artworks, the ones that everyone knows about, and then the second part was. It's starting again. Okay, good. Wait. Yeah. Yeah. So this is what I was going through. So that's, I mean, I cannot change depending on the importance of the ecosystem, how these artworks are kind of, you know, fighting in the archive itself, the artworks. And also here comes the question of who decides what survives, like what thrives, what persists, and what disappears, like who decides that? That's a question we can ask ourselves. Probably we ourselves are also part of that same problem, you know? And like I said, this creates this kind of separation where you have the celebrated artworks, you have the silent ones, and you have the departed. I put there a question mark because there are two ideas that I want us to maybe talk about in that slide there. But with the celebrated, I have this one. This is an artwork from Colette Omogbe. And this is a picture from the founder of Iwalewahaus, Ulibaya, with Leopold Sedar Senghor and his delegates looking at the same artwork. That was in the 1980s. This artwork has been traveling, I don't know how many times. Everyone wants the same artwork. And it's the only one in existence. And the artist herself, as far as I understand, doesn't want to kind of be connected to what the artwork represents. That's a part of an archive that people don't talk about because they converted to changed religion and stuff like that. And those are dynamics that we don't talk about. When the artwork travels, that doesn't concern the artwork at all, and no one talks about that. But what is the urgency of the artist in this sense? And also, why is it the only artwork of this type from a woman that we have in the archive? Because there were quite other women artists in Nigeria during this period. Why were they not collected? That these are questions that, why only her? And why the artwork is sought by everyone. From Germany to the US to UK, like everyone wants the same artwork every time. Why? You get what I'm saying? So this is the celebrated, the thriving artwork. And then you have the silent ones. This picture was taken at Iwalewahaus. We had students from Berlin that visited, they met their class at Iwalewahaus, and we went through the depot, and they found these artworks that we have from Senegalese artists that they never knew that the artworks are in Germany or that we have them. But the seminars that they were having were talking about these artists and talking about the artworks. And they saw the artworks in person. They were happy to see them, but the question is why no one knows about these artworks. We have them in our archive in the depot. We know the artists, we know the techniques, all those small details, but it's like, why don't you really know about them? They never travel. As far as I've been in Iwalewahaus, these artworks have never traveled. They are just in the depot. We take them out when we have, for example, visitors coming interested into Senegalese artists and artworks. Same thing with the artworks you see here in the exhibition. Only one is that I know has been in an exhibition. The other ones were just dormant. So this is what I mean by silent. They are there. They were very useful, but now they are no longer really in conversations. There's no one doing any research on these artworks. That's, for me, I find it quite interesting, for the lack of word, because there've been research done in the 80s, 90s about these artworks, but then there's no modern research being done, Like you were saying with Bembe, some theories might be too old. They need to be revitalized maybe, Maybe there's new research or new views that come up. Now, this also wanted to connect it with some private collectors who have archives. We get offers from private collectors who want to give us their own artworks. Question is, are these artworks worth collecting? That's probably one question to ask. And is it because we are an African art institution that they bring these artworks to us? And why are they getting rid, and I'm using this specifically, why are they getting rid of their collection, so to say? Most of them maybe don't even have space anymore. Or they're getting old and there's no one to take care of their estate, so to say, So what happens with these kind of artworks also? Because when they come, and we do accept, then it's on us to kind of put them into the conversation. We have artworks that came through private collectors, and one or two have already gone to some other exhibitions. You know, because maybe because they were also collected in the 1960s, like also this modernism kind of research, and that everyone is looking for, the aesthetic. So this, I find it that we have artworks that stay there silent. But the last part where I said they departed, these are the ones that on one side, no, they are not in conversations, not at all. But they are taking space into the depot and the collection. And no one knows about them. They've been there for a long time. The second, on the other side of this departed, think of it in a sense of restitution and repatriation. Okay? Now, Iwalewahaus returned some estate back to Nigeria. Okay? This is a very contemporary topic. Now, if you have an archive and you take something back to where it belongs, what remains? That's the question here. You know? If it goes back, as you as an institution, what do you stay with? Because the originals, so to say, have gone. Now you're remaining with probably the digital files, so to say, or you also have the memories of those artworks. And this is where the people in charge or who are working with these collections come into play, because they hold the information about this archive that has gone back. So if you need to do any research, yeah, okay, you can travel to where the archive went, or you can also talk to someone who directly worked with this archive. They have a wealth of information that they can give you because they were so close to this archive. And this also brings another question, and this is a case that I've encountered when we had some guests at Iwalewahaus. Someone came to check something at Iwalewahaus, and he didn't know that he was already in Nigeria. So they flew from Nigeria, came to Germany to look for Black Orpheus magazines. But all the originals are back in Nigeria. So there was no communication also. Or which artworks or which archive went back, what went back, what was in that. We know it's pictures, we know it's magazines, but what kind of magazines? So he came, we don't have the physical Black Orpheus magazine, and that's what he was looking for. But it is back in Nigeria where he was. Now, the part where how the archive is taken care of, there it's a different discussion, but that's also something to think of. If you think of the departed in a sense of the archive is gone, but the information still exists that the archive is here. Well, it's not. This is misleading, So you spend a lot of resources, a lot of time to go somewhere where you will not really find what you need, what it's right next to you. That's in the sense of this departed, so to say. The information is fragmented, scattered, and no one knows until you tell them. So he had to work with the digital archives that exist at the university library, because that's the only thing that is left from the archive that we used to have. So this is, in a sense, is the absence that remains when the archive is gone. This absence remains in people, in memories, and what the work they did into this with the artworks that they worked with. In a sense, the artworks you see here they have a lot of information on them and about them. And I will invite us to go through that in a sense where the question is that when you go through the exhibition here, think about what happened for these artworks to survive. The curator's decisions, the institutions, Iwalewahaus, IFA here, Frankfurt, all these institutions. Think about the decision making that went through that. Maybe we can talk about the access to the archive, so to say, like as part of the survival, you know, of these artworks. Because at least as far as I know, we have 2 different archives from Germany, and there's other files from like London or, you know, from other countries. So think about what happened for these to survive. Why did Ken Aicha Sy have to travel all this way around to Germany, to all these other countries, to find about the Senegalese artist, the contemporaries of her father, sorry. Why? You know? And coming to here, Germany, with the exhibition in Berlin, going to Frankfurt, coming to Iwalewahaus. Why? And the access, maybe that's something you guys can share with us. The access to these artworks, you know? And also think about the displays here. This is something that I share with Natasha. We like how these artworks are displayed here. Because, as you will see, because we are going there shortly, or if you've been there are a lot of information you'd really never find out if the artwork is just framed. But these information are part of this archive, or the information that you need to know about the artworks. There's one artwork in particular that I'm very fond of, because it was a dedication to someone. You will see it. But I wonder why, like, who was this person? How did he travel, through whom until Iwalewahaus? And what did the artist mean by what they said on the artwork? These are information that we can ask ourselves. If you see, for example, an inventar number on the artwork, does that tell you something or not? You know? Because these are information that makes artwork survive in a way. And maybe I can talk about the inventar number afterwards, because it's also a different system and a very peculiar one, so to say. But when you walk through the exhibition, think about that. Think about who had or the power to make these artworks come alive. Most of them are from 1960s, 70s or something, 80s. Since that time until now. And I don't know, we can try to think when, like with the question, when was the last time they were exhibited, for example? There was, I don't know any catalog about some of these artworks, but they are alive, they are here. At least now the catalog is being made. And that's what we are doing as institutions, trying to make these artworks thrive, not just stay silent or just persist in the archive. I much think of some artworks, I'm like, yes, you like this one, but this could be probably interesting for you. You know, as someone who was giving or receiving guests to Iwalewahaus, it's crucial for me that you have the options that, you know, there's also these other artworks that could be interesting for you, not just this one that you're just focusing on. And I think when the team for IFA with Ken came to Iwalewahaus, it also opened my eyes to information or the discussion that we were having, some information that I didn't know, you know? And this is what we need. The information that is in people, the conversation that we have, informal conversations. This doesn't have to be interviews or whatever, informal. These are crucial information that you can keep and that make these artworks live beyond the archive, not just stay there, but thrive in a way. With the invitation that I'm opening to everyone, we are going through this exhibition. No guided tour here. You are going to be exploring. You can go alone, you can go in a pair, however you want. Look at an artwork, choose one or two, whatever you want, but check the details you would not really think of when you're looking at an artwork, okay? We are lucky that there's plexiglass on the artworks here, so look at the back and see what's there and what information they give you, okay? And then at the end we come back here and we have a small discussion. Thank you very much. You can decide how long we take there and we come back here. 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, so go through, look at the artworks, feel free, and we come back here for a small interactive discussion. Thank you.
Caboccio la pena. Mingeres de pano preto, caboccio la pena. Si contravo pudi, ora che un son di nos fidi. Boba da raça, paete se não casa. Si contra bo pudi, ora que um som de nós fidi. Boba da raça, paete se não casa. Babia liki no chong, no tava inante, volta di mundo, e rabo di pomba. Babia liki no chong, no tava inante, volta di mundo, e rabo de pomba. limpa bocorson, uno sangue que na cai na chong oi. Ma bona limpa bocorson, uno sangue que na cai na chong oi. Pingeres de pano preto, cabo chora pena. Pingeres de pano preto, cabo chora pena. Pingeres de pano preto, cabo chora pena.
La trigueña encarnación, cuando se pone a bailar, no hace más que pararear lo que la orquesta interpretó. Su compañero Tomás, como la conoce bien, le dice con gran estilo: fíjate que va a llover, y si no puedes correr por el trecho del vestido. La mulata encarnación, cuando se pone a bailar, no hace más que pararear lo que la orquesta interpretó. Su compañero Tomás, como la conoce bien, le dice con gran estilo: fíjate que va a llover, y si no puedes correr por el trecho del vestido. Dame el paso, se te rompe el 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 vestido. La trigueña encarnación, la que baila mi centilio. La trigueña encarnación, la que baila mi centilio. Como baila este son, con su nete sabrosito. Dame el paso, se te rompe el vestido. Dame el paso, se te rompe el vestido. La trigueña encarnación, la que baila mi centilio. La trigueña encarnación, la que baila mi centillo. Como baila este son, con su nete sabrosura. Dame el paso, se te rompe el vestido. Dame el paso, se te rompe el vestido. ¡Rico! Iba esa.
we convening back?
It's okay.
I just want to open the discussion, okay? It's not going to be me talking, but we are going to share ideas, and everyone who has something to say can join in. I will be probably forcing people to talk at some point. But I'm going to open the floor, okay? But I want to hear from you guys. What stuck with you with the artworks that you saw? Like something you found out of the ordinary, so to say, or that was like, why is this here?
Maybe I can start if no one else wants. So I could see prices on some of the artworks written on the back.
In what currency?
Yeah, that's the question, because some were quite high, like 350,000, I think. Might be franc CFA. Yeah, thank you. But also 300, I think.
Yeah.
So very different numbers.
That's one thing. So some artworks do have prices on them, and you can also, who knows, maybe they were market prices at that time, you know? And why is one artwork 300, another one, for example, 3,000, so to say? And what does the currency play here? If it's in CFA, and it was, for example, bought with someone who, like if you convert, for example, in euros, how much would that be now with inflation and stuff like that, you know? On top of the prices, you can also think about who sold the artwork. Was it the artist, or did someone own the artwork and then sold it afterwards? And to who was it sold to? Who bought this artwork? You know? One artwork that I said that I'm very fond of, we were looking at it. It has, for example, 2 different dates on it. It has the title, and it's dated 1986. And then it has a dedication to someone, and it's the date. It's in 87, like 1 year later. All these are, it's the back of the artwork. Also, when you check the artwork, in my opinion, when I see it, it's like it's cut in half. I don't know if you guys were able to pick that up, for example. You can definitely see that it's cut. There's like a part that is missing. You know? Like, why did this happen? This is part of archival information that needs to be known somehow, you know? So these are like the unusual thing about some of the artworks, or that when we visit exhibitions or you visit an archive, that you can't think of all the time. I have another question that I'm going to ask to people from IFA. And this goes to the display here, okay? You have an artwork that is framed, you have the big textile there, and you have the ones in plexiglass. Why? Why not frame the artworks that are not framed? Okay? I mean, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, actually there was a lot of discussions around now how also today how to put the archive into a living mode. And actually also when we talk about artworks, they are also bodies, and you were also talking about their stories, their trajectories, and to have them as conversation partners with them among them, but also as conversation partners with us. It was important to not have them in frames, to box them into something, but to have them very light, very floating, liberated also in a way, no? Because when you put a frame, you always put a frame how you perceive, what you perceive. That also has an influence, which frame you pick, you make it more static, you need a wall, so also all that, and it was more an understanding of a lively landscape of memory that you walk through and you prompt new imaginations and stories. So that was, I think, one conceptual part that was very important. And then when we were at the Iwalewahaus with you, we discovered all the information that you were now also picking on the other side. And so actually all this information around that you were also talking about in your talk, no? Which is often invisible, which picks on infrastructures, but also people, the part that we often not consider when we talk about archives or artworks, no? How are they traveling, who is selling what to whom, why is somebody interested in something, why from something comes out a project, why not? The same goes for the art market, no? It's friendships, it's market, it's sometimes also random circumstances. And that we wanted to make all of that part of the story. Also for Ken Aicha, that was very important on that way. And maybe Paula wants to add something to that. No? Yeah, that was maybe the main point. And why we have different. I mean, it's also because the Iwalewahaus was very generous in that way that we were free to choose how to present them in conversation with them. So, for example, the one work which is framed is from Weltkulturmuseum in Frankfurt, and it came framed, and it was not an option to to show it out of the frame. It was a precondition to show it. So it also has something to do with the conversation we had with the Iwalewahaus and the possibilities that were made up from there.
Yeah, but you mean that came terms and condition to deal with the artwork? Okay, yeah. Understandable. You want to?
Which also adds to the framing, because when I entered, I also loved the framing, which also brings another dimension into the space, namely the spiritual and the energetic, because the room is flowing in a complete different way than when you're hanging in a frame, a picture in a frame, which is about the spirits and the ancestors on the wall. So this is another dimension that I read into it, which also then goes to your third category, the discarded. And I would ask if there shouldn't also be a fourth category. And if so, what that fourth category would be.
There could be. Because these are, in my understanding, not my understanding, but in my opinion, like basic ones to kind of classify what thrives, what is silent in the archive, and what doesn't get talked about. Now, when it comes to that part where we are looking into, like, with different lenses, like the spiritual part of some of the artworks, that's a kind of a different dimension that if we put it there as another category, there could be, how do I put this, like a different aura about these artworks, so to say.
thinking of the exhibition Survival Kit in itself, I think belongs in the fourth category, which might be the revived.
The revival, yeah.
The revival, and this is where I was coming from. So, yeah, the spirit, I didn't want to limit it to the spirit. I was just saying that concerning the frames. But
so that's basically actually, I removed it, but that's like the last part.
Oh, okay.
It's more so to say, like, if you have something like this, you have the silent artworks, and then you have a chance to have an exhibition like this. What comes after that? That's now the question, because, as I said, the archive is alive, but we make it alive, and this revival comes from us. Through the exhibition, through writing research paper, or even, taking these catalogs and sharing them, This is steps we can take to, like she says, revive. It's more like keeping these artworks in conversation. Like, it would be sad if these artworks would just go back into the archive and they just stayed silent. You know what I mean? Because that happens quite a lot, actually. The artworks go into exhibitions, they come back to the depot, that's it, But it would be nice to have conversation, research, more traveling, or even involving other artists in connection to these ones, Like creating stories around this, the artworks and the artists themselves. There's one video that was an interview between someone from Turn 2, I think, with Ken Aicha Sy. And she said that for her, the next question is, I'm going to ask my dad, what are we doing with these artworks and stuff? Like, what's the next step? And that's a very big question, because them as artists and curator, it's even a different dimension of, the artworks are here in Germany. As she says, the contract with Frankfurt ended. Now, are they traveling back to Senegal? These are other questions to deal with. It's a different dimension. Or they start, for example, traveling through exhibitions. That's another option. But for us, or whatever we are involved in, it's always on us to kind of revive or make conversation happening around the artworks. This is one way to keep the archive alive and moving, so to say. I hope that was my point that I wanted to make at the end, but it's okay to bring it in front.
I want to support what Natasha said about the fourth category and the revival by going back to a basic characteristic of the archive, of any archive, and that's taking care of something. It's not loving something, but at least taking care of something. And behind taking care, there is money and there is investment. Because what you said about the funding is so crucial. What's it, Mbembe? Yeah, Stuart Hall, about the necessity of funding. But behind funding and investment is a decision that this is worth of taking care of. This is already something, even for the silent ones. And perhaps mostly for the silent ones, because most of the archival stuff is silent. And I want to point to what you had in mind with revival. And this also brings us back to the music and to many cases which Martin, as part of Seismographic Records, know as much or more even than me, that is latency. Latency in recognition. So an archive is also an investment into a potential future, a potential revival of something we don't estimate now, or we cannot estimate now, by the formation of our tastes or our shaped aesthetics, but which we will be able to do in 10 years or in 50 years, or we don't know when. So this is also something which is for the silent works with potential to be revived or to have a revival. And I think a big part also of the people dealing and curating an archive is to identify high potentials.
That's I think it's very, because the people that I got in contact with, both from the researchers who visited Iwalewahaus, the curators, that potential is there, but the interest to explore the potential is really low. That it's really, really low. Like, we have, for example, interest from an upcoming exhibition in the US, and they want the artworks that we have. But they only asked about around 2 or 3 artworks, and we had to expand their interest in taking the other artworks. No, this is not a problem about resources, for example. It's more like, oh, we didn't know you have these artworks. You know? That was also something that they didn't know, that we have the artworks. But also, the ones that come, they don't really have an interest in exploring that potential. And that's at least what I tried to do with when the team for IFA and Ken came to Iwalewahaus. It would have been easier to just show them the 3 artworks of Aicha Sy that we have. 2 of them were already exhibited in Berlin, you know? But why not show these other? Because they're in conversation with the artists they are working with. And this is what comes out, you know? It's this kind of exploration that is really necessary. And when it comes to this 4th category, the revival, let me play the devil's advocate here a bit, okay? There's a concept, an idea by Edouard Glissant of right to opacity, that some things don't need to be visible, for example, okay? Now, it depends on, for example, if an artist say, I don't want my artwork to be exhibited, you can't do anything about it, okay? And that's their right. So just because there's access to the archive, it's open or whatever, doesn't mean that maybe it should be out in the open. Maybe it staying in the archive hidden is a sort of survival also. It's protection. That's another thing, another way to think of it. Because most of the time when we think of an archive, we think, okay, we need to make the catalogs, we need to digitize everything, and it needs to be accessible. That's what we think all the time. But, you know, devil's advocate.
Sorry, I'm really getting into it now. But it would be my protection against what?
I'll give you a case study. Yeah, I'll give you a case study. When Anna Helfer came to Iwalewahaus, we checked some artworks from Senegal, and she mentioned that there's a community in Senegal that is looking for anything related to that community, and they wanted everything back to Senegal. They don't want it in, like, out in the open. Now, if you have such, if you have an artwork that pertains to that community and they want it back, what can you do? If they get it back, they don't want it, they don't want their culture or their traditions to be more out in the open. But also this goes to the protection against extraction, because this is what happens most of the times. Think about when you visit an exhibition, when you see an artwork, what are your first questions? You know, you most of the time it's about how nice it looks, or, you know, the aesthetics really. but this is to you. You're not first thinking about the person who made the artwork, you know? So it could be protection against extraction, because probably they're being, I don't know, taken advantage of in a way, you know? Maybe they don't want to be out in the open. And this is also their right to be like, oh, maybe I stay hidden.
I 100% agree, and then it goes back to the question: is this even art in its origin? Was it made for an archive? Was it made to be exhibited in spaces like this? Was it made to continue the discourse and so on? And these are the things I'm talking about. That really, like in the space where we are now, this for me would be the fourth category. Yep. For someone like Ken to come and to actually continue a discourse which is in her rightful discourse, her story to tell. She becomes a storyteller in a space. She revives and gives life to the objects, and aka entities, in a complete different way. That for me is the fourth category. Not going into, should these things be here anyway, looted from wherever, stolen from whoever, taken out of their spiritual context and given in, you know, locked into oblivion. I don't know. Of course, the people need their entities back, and they should get them back without discussion. Finito. That's not even that what I'm talking about. But literally, how can we even have discourses like this is what I understand to be a revival of an archive, of putting things into context, not focusing on the result, but actually focusing on the process, on the discourse itself, not even looking to where it will lead us, but just making that next step, bringing it into the future at all. No?
And this reminds me when Ken was at Iwalewahaus, like looking through the artworks, we were having like very casual conversations, and she was seeing some things and was like, oh, I know this person, and I know their studio, I think. It was an artist, I don't remember the name exactly. But she was telling us stories about the artist just because she just saw the artwork from the artist. And these stories stayed with us in an informal way. Now, personally, I would like to have that somehow recorded, somehow saved somewhere. Because these, although they come through casual conversations, they add a lot of context to the artwork and to the artist himself. And this context kind of creates the narrative that goes forward. Because most of the artworks we have, you see the aesthetic, you know the artist, but if you don't have any context, you don't really understand it. But the literal work of the archive is to make the work understandable, or to create a body of information that makes the work more legible to a lot of people, you know? And I think that's where the revival comes also. It's also more like, what am I doing, what are we doing, so that this artwork, the archive, the information doesn't stay stagnant. I think that's the biggest challenge we all have. In a sense, lucky enough, we have this relationship with IFA and Iwalewahaus, and there's the Frankfurt where the artworks are. And also with what you guys are doing with the Turkish cassette, the community you're working with, you know. All these relationships are the ones that build something that goes even beyond just what you're working with right now. And that's the revival, in my opinion. That's what I think the work you do now, looking at the potential, is more like you're paving the way for a lot of people who will get in contact with what you're doing or what you're cataloging here. And when it comes to the the research or whoever explores that potential, that is a very hard question to answer. Because if I have an interest, I will definitely check out. But if I don't have an interest, I will not even come to check the archive. And that's my work that I've been doing in the past 2 years. It's more, if I have someone visiting the archive, I take it on myself to make the archive open, to make them see there's other options, not just this one or two that you're just looking for. For that, at least I think it opens more ways.
Okay, so, does anybody want to add something to the revival points, or shall I just move on? Okay, because I have 2.5 questions and 2.5 questions. Yeah, and one thought process.
Yeah.
I think I'll try to sum it up. But I will start with my thought process, and it's about the display, because we talked about how beautiful it is and how it's nice to be able to see the back side of the artwork. And I do agree. I think for our goal, I think it's great. But just while going through it, or maybe because of my experience in dealing with ethnographic objects, it connects me to this conversation around African objects or African artworks being displayed in showcases. And just looking at this, it still somehow gives me the showcase vibe, but it may be in 2 dimensions instead of 3D. So, I mean, that's just a thought process. I was just wondering if somebody else sees it like this too. But then I'll just go straight to my question. The first one would be, when you were talking about survival of artworks, I was wondering in my head if digitization could actually help survival of artworks. Maybe not just digitization, but digitization with accessibility, because you also mentioned the example of somebody coming from Nigeria, looking for black authors, but ended up working with the digital collection. So I was wondering, in your opinion, do you think digitization could help survival of artworks? And if you said yes, now let's imagine a future where digitization is complete, all the collections are online, people can check it. Do you think we will still come back to this point where we still discuss the survival of digital collections? My next question would be about your categorization. I think you gave 3, which is nice. It gives an overview. There's the celebrated, the silent, and the departed. And I'm thinking about certain objects or artworks, call it collection, in your storage or in a certain storage where they exist, but they have no documentation. People see them, but they don't even remember who brought it in. And where would you categorize this type of artworks?
That was one part from The Departed. The Departed is not only the one that have gone back, so to say, but it's also the forgotten artworks in the depot, so to say. Like I said, they are there, still wrapped. There's no record of when they came into the depot. There's no information, or even where did it come from. Like, that's also, I bundled it in The Departed, so to say. It's like the forgotten artworks. That's the ones where if you come and ask me about an artist or an artwork, I would definitely tell you no, because I don't know that we have that artwork, because I've never seen it. You know? And that's the 3 categories are more, in a way, the ones that I know we have, and I can tell you, like, yo, check this we have. The second category is more like, let me check the papers. Maybe I need to be sure. And the third one is like, I don't know. I have no idea. I just know we have stuff that are still wrapped. I don't know what's in there. That's part of this Departed. The question of digitization and access as survival. It's a double-edged sword, so to say, in a sense. Yes, digitization would help in more or less keeping the artworks and the objects alive, and probably to a big, like, whole range of people online, so to say. but the access is a different question. Now, they talked about how some of the software have their own issues when it comes to digitization, and we have the same issue where the previous software or collection system that we're using never or was not intended for art collections. So the way to deal with that is also very different. If you have a system that is not made for what you want to do, it's a mismatch there. And it won't really help anyway. Access, I don't know. It's a very big question, but for me it still goes to who decides the access, really. And if we say the institution decides that this will be in the open, you always have to go back to, okay, because all these artworks have rights, so to say, through the artists, through institutions that are insuring them and stuff like that. That's behind the scene things that we don't really talk about, you know? So if you want, for example, artworks from Twin 77, if you want to publish it in a paper, yes, you can ask us, but we have to go somewhere to ask for the rights for this artwork to be published. So all these processes are power plays in a sense. Okay, so access, I don't know. For me, it's very, it's not as an open or it's not that obvious, so to say, and it's something that is very modern, so to say, and everyone is still trying to figure out how to work with it, in a sense, you know, and this is what makes it hard. Access to what also? Like, what kind of information are you seeing? Are you just going to see the artwork as an image? What about the metadata of the artwork? Who's going to see that? You know? And if you make the metadata open, are you violating any rights? These are questions that people don't really think about, but they come into play when you start working with these systems. And when you're working with the archive, for example, if you think about this Inventanuma, how, for example, you made it, do you make the same thing when you're working with a digital archive? Or you maybe add on something else, you know what I mean? Maybe there's something that changes on the system itself. And there are evolving questions and evolving ways of dealing with these questions. There's no really, for me anyways, there's no right answer for now for that. I mean, it's a big ask if you tell me, I want to digitize this artwork and I want it to be accessible. That's really basic question to ask, because with those questions comes a whole can of worms that people don't really want to open. Because some you might get to where you get blocked and you can't go any further. And how would you deal with that? That I don't know. It's an open, if you guys have an idea, jump in.
Try to support what you were trying to say. Restrictions and access is actually a very major thing. I will just cite some examples and then maybe give a context to it, especially Nigeria's artifact. I was privileged to be in that conversation, and then some very ridiculous questions came up. For example, we're told that the artifacts will be sent back to an auction. Nigeria can go buy them back from there if we want to own them. There's another conversation around the fact that we don't have facilities and the know-how to manage them. that they're going to make 3D prints and give back to Nigeria. And there's another conversation that came up. These are different blocks like you were talking about that will definitely restrict these things from ever from you to get access to them. For example, you know, Nigeria has between 5,000 to 10,000 artifacts. With the British Museum, only 700 is in display. You know, so all of these, and you can actually check that with Professor Dan Hicks, because I actually worked with him and Okwonundu in the US, so we did all of these conversations together. So these, you will definitely get to where you hit a roadblock. Like you said, it's true. The question you would definitely ask is, oh, I just want to digitize this and I want it to be accessible. But no, that's not just it. There are a lot of things that really goes into accessing these artifacts, these artworks. There's information for people to be able to. So I just wanted to support what you're trying to say, that you're always going to get there.
There's also our famous friend, funds, when it comes to doing those digitization, so to say. You know, it's a question of money also. So who's going to fund that, or where's the money going to come from? That's another big question, you know. I mean, unless you start afresh by designing a system yourself, you know. But if you are going to use someone else's system, if you want to get someone to do the digitization, that's a question of money also. And that's a big one, you know? So all those hurdles you meet in the way, yes, you can try to find ways around them, but you can't deny that they're there. And digitization and access, we think it's something that we should have, but when we think further, there's a lot of questions to go through. And I'm not saying you can't go or you can't get over the blocks, but you need to think about them on every kind of step, because at least it helps you process, oh, I need to do this, I need to fulfill this before I start doing any digital. You do photography, or you used to do photography. Yeah, now think about when you're taking a picture of an artwork, okay? And I'm talking about digitization because you have to take a picture of an artwork or an object somehow. Do you guys think the picture becomes the artwork in this sense? If you put it on a... He says no? Or is it a replica of an artwork? She says no. But the picture becomes an object on its own. Not, yeah, that's what I mean.
And there's also digital art. So you know, to do justice to digital artists, I would actually also say that's definitely not art. It's a reproduction of it. And okay, NFT might be yesterday as well, but it still is a way of proof, right, of what is the actual original. And if I may say something to the digital discussion also, I think it's too easy to think one-on-one in the digital, that everything that's in an analog space can just be translated into a digital space. That's way too easy, in the sense that if you look at digitization only as a technical process, then taking a photo of something, uploading it somewhere, and adding a few metadata. But the digital has its own social circle and ecosystem. It's its own digital ecosystem. So we have to think completely different when it comes to the digital. It's not only about who has access, where you even say, even if I look at some of our original works that belong to the Yoruba in the smallest village, do they even have access to the internet, would be the question, to even include them into a digital discussion, yeah? So accessibility cannot be the only motivation when it comes to digitizing it. It might be longevity, that we have like the data that we had with the cassettes that I was saying just now, that you can, the digital has a longer life than the vinyl or a cassette or a VHS and so on. That might be something when you're looking into the future. But as you also mentioned, we also have the metadata. Do we really want to reproduce the Eurocentric canon in the digital realm? Please no, would be my answer to that. Exactly. Because we're trying to get rid of it in the real space. Do we need, in the real world, in the analog, do we need to reproduce that in the digital world? And if we're not using that, what will the new metadata be? No? And how do we get to that metadata? And these processes, I think, are online or in the digital realm, a total different conversation that we need to have this conversation. And it reaches far beyond just accessibility, technical digitization, and it's its own space also, in the literal sense of the world. The worldwide, it's a virtual, and there are so many more questions tied to it. With ecology, where are we putting those servers? Yep. Where are we getting the water from to run the servers? No, these are all questions that are tied to it, that the conversations that we're not even having, that are all tied to digitization. It's not just, oh, let's upload something, press a button, and it comes back out in, printed in color kind of thing. These are the discussions Germany's having, where I'm like, no, we are so behind when it comes to a digital conversation. It's so much more than that, no? And do we need all of these in a digital space? Do they belong even in a digital space? Yep. No, I could go on and on and on and on with this, because it's a huge conversation that we're not having. No, we're still, can we? And now we need a digital ministerium, and then we need this, and then we need that. And then and I'm like, in the meantime, it's like the entire world is overtaking us here in Europe when it comes to digital conversations. It's sad, actually.
But to something that you mentioned, this digital space could and can also be a mode of survival for these archive and artworks. It can be a mode of survival. That's possible, but as she mentioned, like it's a different world that we'll be talking about. But it can, in my opinion, it can still be a way of an artwork or an artist or an archive survive. That's possible. I think that's possible, but takes a different conversation, so to say.
So thank you very much, because you answered the question in the end. So when I mentioned digital, I wasn't trying to open a can of worm or so. I wasn't really referring about what makes a good digital project, the ethics behind it, or the things to follow. It was more about thinking about a utopia where the concepts or the processes behind the digital or digitization of artworks or collections are 100% good for everybody. Just let's imagine it. And in that world where digital is now fine and we all agree about the responsibilities behind it, does it save or does it also help collections to survive? And I guess you gave a soft answer to it right now.
In the utopia, yeah, I mean, it's a utopia anyways.
Yes, so
you know what I mean? Like, no, but
so
yeah, that's the next what I wanted to mention also, because in the utopia is a utopia, yes.
Yeah.
So everything is ideal,
Yeah.
But in this sense, we are also like the digital space, so to say, is also governed by a lot of restrictions, so to say, that you have to think about. Now, she just mentioned Elon Musk and stuff like that. Yeah. So for me, if you talk about the utopia, where everything is ideal, it's a nice dream, to be honest. But I don't know. I don't see when that would happen, because there's a lot of things that are, not connecting together, or because people have different interests towards, what they want to do. The one who owns the platform or the server, or you who's putting your data online, you also have your own interest. The one who's going to check those information, it might be
good.
There's a lot of conflicting
so may I ask,
factions.
I have a question now, but I'm directing it to you. So with all you said, would your argument be that we should slow down on the aim to digitize collections nowadays?
Slow down, yes. Stop, no. I think we have to be ahead of the debate. First of all, we have to catch up with the debate, because here in Europe and in Germany in general, we're far behind. We don't even own our own satellite systems. This is literally world politics, what's happening right now. Yeah, and I think that we're not taking into consideration how far the digital actually reaches what we're actually talking about here. You need the satellite, you need control of the satellites, you need the software, the Microsoft, the Apples of the world, and all of these vector companies that are now literally controlling the United States is because of exactly that. And we're sitting here and we're still dependent on all of them, down to the chips made here and the Chinese there, and the whole world is in this whole digital disaster, or whatever you want to call it, going on right now. So we can't get out. We're not outside of this. No? So that's why we have to become a part of it, and we have to think the discourse bigger. We're thinking too technical. You need an internet and a laptop and press a button. That's too technical. We need to broaden the discourse to what it actually is, to become a part of the discourse, and then I think we'll be asking different questions when it comes to archives and how to actually digitize archives, because it's more than just a technical process of taking a photo, uploading metadata, and then people might have access or might not have access to what we then have put on the internet. Yeah, it's a much bigger discourse, and I think we need to be part of this discourse 100%, but we need it needs to be a broader discourse, and I think it's just too little, we're too slim thinking right now, and when it comes to the digital, it's just too basic, and everybody is already up there in the stars, so to say, in the literal sense of the word. That's why for me it's not a utopia, and I'm an Afrofuturist, but a very realistic Afrofuturist when it comes to that. We're already there. We are already on the stars. We don't need to, dream of riding in no rocket ships or anything. We've been there. We've done that. No, we're already on the moon, so to say. Yeah, that is literal. And I think that this is where we get too cozy to think, oh, the digital, that's going to be a nice safe space. It's going to be nice and cute, and we can all know. I think it's really dangerous also to think like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for your response. I understand what you mean, and I understand where you're coming from. No argument, and I'm not trying to say that I don't agree on it or anything. I do agree. I've also experienced this before. Been in several meetings on how we should digitize our collection, who should be writing the text, how do we go about the colonial languages that were written on this collection. So I do understand that, but I've also experienced situations where all of these conversations then delay the action. And we have people that are eager to want to know what's in our collection. And they would say, even if you have one picture, I can work with it. If you send me this picture, I can go to this village and I can ask a lot of people and they can give me more information. So this puts me in this spot where I understand what you're saying about what we should think about when thinking of digitizing collection. But I'm also somebody who's thinking about action. How do we really make changes also through actions, because so this is where I mean, so this is where I have these two perspectives of, we should think about how to digitize, but I also think we should start putting our things on. When people see it, they would comment, they would write more. It inspires people to also think, to imagine a future. And so, and that's where I'm coming from. I just wanted to put it out there. But I understand what you mean exactly, yeah.
Slow down, yes. Stop, no. Maybe think about one object person, trial and error, and what's going to happen to this in the digital space, and actually watch what will happen. Make that the research even, before we, say, oh, let's just put everything online, and then what? It's like, then we have the same problem just in the digital space, kind of like. So I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. Did I what? Sorry.
Digital Benin.
Digital Benin.
Digital Benin, yeah.
No, I haven't checked that one out yet. Okay. Oh, okay.
In a way, when we are thinking of an archive living way beyond the walls of the collection, there are just some uncomfortable conversation to have to some extent, but also just because there are walls, the ideas always escape. In a way, for example, even you said the talking might delay the process, but in a sense, when you have the seed of the idea there, you can try to push the idea to be fruitful. In a way, where I understand, I'll give you an example of what I want to say. For example, with Iwalewahaus, we are trying to revive the digital archive that we have. But the question comes with the server. Okay? Now, Iwalewahaus is tied to the university, and that's the server that we were using. And the collection that we have, that is digital, so to say, is on the university collection, which is not made for our work that we do really. It doesn't really fit. But if you try to get a server, you can still use the university server. But let's say you have, or you want to use a different server. What server are you using? From where? The ones that are considered safe, let's say from Switzerland. Do you know how expensive they are? Crazy, okay? The ideas are there. That's not the problem, in my opinion. The ideas are there. The problem lies in all these hurdles that are in the way, and what people have to do or to go through, to make everything possible. And this is something that I find very crucial, what she said. If someone likes you, they will be more open to have or to give you access. It's the same thing in the digital world. If you are friends with someone who has their way about that, you will, of course, be able to go through. It's still the question of relations. This is how we move, so to say, And in the utopic world you're talking about, these relations, they shape what lives beyond, and the archive, how it goes beyond just survival. Because also, we are talking about survival, but we shouldn't really, in my opinion, stop at surviving. We should make everything thrive, Sorry, but this is something maybe we'll talk even after. It would be sad that this doesn't continue, so to say. And this is our task, so to say, every one of us, to kind of make it continue even beyond just in exhibitions or going back into the shelves in the depot. I think that's our work.
This was a really nice last word by you. Thank you very much, Regis. Thank you very much, Cornelia, for these very interesting questions that you raised today, and also to the audience. Thank you for the discussions. Yeah, more questions than answers, but this is a research project, so I think there will be no quick answers. And I wanted to invite you also to our upcoming public program. There's a lecture by Temidayo Oyeniran on the 5th of February, and he will look at ethnographic collections as story carriers. So very warm welcome, and hope to see you there or to the rest of the public program. Have a nice evening today. Bye-bye.